Hello, my name is Justin Dominguez. My debate partner is Tanya Mederos. We've been assigned a beetle battle for our debate. I've got the stag beetle, uh, and Tanya's got the titan beetle. And so we're going to be discussing the ways in which that they fight, defend themselves, how they move, and what they would look like in a one-on-one face-off with each other. So first off, let's give a little bit of background about each of the beetles. So since I'm going first, I'll start with mine. I've got the stag beetle. Now, the stag beetle is most populous in Europe. The name is derived from the male mouth parts, which resemble the stags of an antler. Now, the females do not share the same physiological trait. Their mouth parts are much smaller and much closer in. And this is just the reason for this is because the stag beetle uses also its pincers not only for defense but also as mating in order to attract a suitable female. But now don't count out the female stag beetles, though they do not have the same large chewing mouth or the same large mouth parts. Their bite is more powerful than the male beetles.
Okay, my tiny beetle is found in the tropic of South America. My beetle is considered probably the second largest insect of the world. The mouth parts are narrow, powerful, and longer than the head. So basically, are half, double half the size of the head. Um, my mouth part can snap pencils in half and cut into human flesh. The whole purpose, basically, of my tiny beetle is to breed, to mate and breed, and then they die afterwards.
So going into more of the biology of each of the beetles, for the stag beetle, the larvae of the males and females can be distinguished from one another by the females having cream-colored fat ovaries that are visible through the skin. Um, Stag beetles go through a complete metamorphosis from egg to larvae to pupa to adult, with the larvae portion lasting many years. Where they're constantly feeding on wood to store up energy. Some of the larvae species can get even pretty big themselves. They can be about the size of a human finger. And it takes about 4 to 6 years for the larvae to pupate, which means that for most of the life cycle of the stag beetle is spent in the larval stages, collecting food and storing up energy.
Being from the beetle family, the tiny beetle it has a similar biological aspect as the stag beetle. The larvae of the tiny beetle is much larger than adult, about 1.5 times the size of the actual tiny beetle. This is because the larvae actually is always hiding in wood, buried in wood, in order to grow and complete full metamorphosis.
As far as some history on the Beatles, a guy by the name of Vigidus Figulus, that is a real name, by the way, who's a scholar in the late Roman Republic, called the stag beetle Lucanus after the Italian region of Lucania, where they were used as amulets. And for the scientific name, Lucanus cervus, cervus, which comes from the Latin word meaning deer, and it was coined by a man by the name of Carlos Linnaeus in 1758. These beetles are mostly found within gardens and forests in Western Europe, stretching from like Italy across to like the British Isles.
Okay, mine also was this. It's also described by Carlos Linnaeus in 1771. It is found in the hot, humid regions around the tropics near the equator. The tiny beetle is really rare. Only about 5 female species have been found. 5 female of the tiny beetles compared to dozens of the male ones. Um, a Czech entomologist tells the story of an explorer. that found a male tiny beetle in the fish, and that helped find more research based on this tiny beetle.
And as far as adults, the adult stag beetles appear during late May to the beginning of August and are most active during the evenings. The females tend to dig pretty far deep into the ground to lay their eggs, and the adults only live for a few weeks feeding on nectar and tree sap. Most of the energy that they gain for their adult lifetime comes from the 4 to 6 years that they spend as larvae, feeding on dead wood and stuff. And as far as studying them goes, they're pretty much like just natural models. They strike poses whenever something bigger than them approaches.
My tiny beetle only flies when it's in the wet region, basically during December and February, and appear under light. So basically what that means is they will only fly when it's hot and wet, which is basically only a few months in the year. But yeah, that's it.
Right. And as with the impacts on society, though the adults are very nice to look at aesthetically, they are great models, cool insects to collect. The larvae are actually the ones that provide the most impact on human society for stag beetles. They feed on dead and deciduous trees, plants, and adults again feed on like rotting fruits and sap. Effectively, the larvae compost the ground around them, breaking them up to use as like plant foods, fertilizers, and breaking up anything that may be compacted into the soil to create a fuller and richer soil for plants to be able to put their roots in, for seeds to get in, for water to flow through. Yeah.
Like I previously mentioned, my tiny beetle only a small number have been found, so there's really no specific details on the impact to human society. But know that there's not really a threat facing to human society, but it can only be determined when there's.
And as far as unique characteristics, again, the males and the females are starkly different from each other. The males are the only ones with the really long pincers, whereas the females have smaller pincers, since they're not the ones attempting to attract the mate. The males are the ones attempting to attract the mate. Some species of stag beetles can get as large as 4.7 inches, but usually most are around 2 inches long, not really growing much bigger than that.
My tiny beetle, the biggest one found was 16.7 centimeters long, about 6.5 inches in length, but they can grow even bigger than that. So that's the most unique characteristics that they have.
So now that we've gone through the tale of the tape between the two beetles, you've gotten a good idea of, how each one lives, breeds, reproduces, and essentially how they store up their energy. Let's actually get down to it, as far as, the Titan beetle versus the stag beetle. And I guess I'll start off with the stag beetle. And, the stag beetle's most formidable weapon is its most obvious weapon, which is the long pincers on the males. Now, typically, from a physical standpoint, the fact that the pincers are so long, you wouldn't think that they would be able to apply so much pressure, since a fulcrum and a lever on that much length wouldn't exert much force. But through evolutionary biology and grooming, the stag beetle has actually managed to develop certain muscular and like piston firing systems within their jaws in order to create a strong clamp that they can use at a far range. Again, the pincers on the males are almost half the entire length of the beetle. So, think about being able to have your weapon be twice as far from you and being able to reach out and stop something from getting you even before it can get, a body length away from you.
The Titan beetle is known to have a pinch that can snap a pencil in half and cut through human flesh. So the pincers they do a tight clamp whenever they're in danger with another species that's their predator or just to live around.
I mean, yeah, I have to admit the Titan beetle, or yeah, the Titan beetle probably does have a much stronger pinch than the stag beetle. But again, I've got the length on you. I've got the reach. So, you have to be able to fight through like an entire beetle length almost before you could even get to me. So I think maybe that might give me the one up. As long as I can keep some distance between you as a stag beetle, then I think I might have a chance.
Well, I mean, it's great. You may have the reach in order to keep your distance, but let's not forget where the Titan beetle gets its name. I mean, the Titan beetle is much, much larger. While the stag beetle itself, it's as large as grow to a length of 4.7 inches, as you mentioned. The Titan beetle averages amount to a full inch to an inch and a half than the actual stag beetle. So in my case, this Titan beetle has a much, much bigger size than yours.
Okay. Well, I get that. You're bigger, you might have a little bit, more on me as far as just like size goes. But the stag beetle, it has defenses for that too. Not only has it learned to be quite the model for photography, but it's also a good defense mechanism that whenever it's approached by larger objects, that a stag beetle has a good chance of, or has a good chance of defending itself by reaching down into a Zen moment and getting as still as a rock or a twig, and effectively, blending in almost like flora and fauna around it.
That's great. I mean, if the stag beetle chooses to remain still, then the size advantage will allow the Titan beetle to bring its girth right into the face of the stag beetle, which means, I mean, your advantage will really turn into a disadvantage.
True, true, true. All right, well, I guess in conclusion for the stag beetle, I think it being smaller, may give it a little bit more advantage in the speed room, and having the fact that its weapon keeps its enemies far away from it is also a pretty good advantage as well. And as a last-ditch effort, being able to use camouflage and disguising itself as something that's not even alive or worth attacking would be a could be a good defense mechanism when all else fails. You know.
In conclusion, with my Titan beetle, I mean, the name says it all. It's big overall, so there's not much to tell. But and the really unique characteristic that really points out the Titan beetle would be the ability to fly, even though it's a really big insect. So I mean, in my case, I think that the Titan beetle will win overall and beat the stag beetle.
All right. Good points all around. I guess that about sums it up for this debate between which would win between the Titan beetle and the stag beetle. Hopefully, the information that either one of us has given you would have been enough to give you an idea of what you think would be the better beetle battler. Thanks again for listening to the debate. I'm Justin Dominguez. My debating partner is Tanya Medeiros. Thanks and gig 'em.
Here you go.